Hey, this is Michael Gilbert from Flotsam and Jetsam, and you're listening to Sonic Perspectives.
Hey guys, welcome to yet another Sonic Perspectives interview. I'm Rodrigo Otaf, and today I'm joined by my friend Joe Barrios in what promises to be a very interesting talk with someone bearing a familiar name for many of you out there.
Hey Rodrigo, you're absolutely right, and it is our right pleasure to welcome Mr. Michael Gilbert to this chat, guitarist and founding member of Phoenix-based die-hard thrash metal act Flotsam and Jetsam. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. Really appreciate you guys doing the interview with me, and I'm looking forward to talking with you guys.
The pleasure is all ours, Mike, and I believe that Rodrigo is ready to begin.
Let's dive right in then. You have a new album entitled The End of Chaos, scheduled for release next January 18th, and obviously every listener would love to hear about it. So this is my first question to you. How would you describe the record to those who haven't had the pleasure of listening to it yet?
This is a good one. We're super excited about this album. It seems like the last record we released, which was a self-titled one, Flotsam and Jetsam, it was like a stepping stone to what the End of Chaos turned out to be. It seems like we've really hit our stride on this record, and our songwriting as a team has really just come together, and it's well-oiled now, and I'm just super proud of it. Just the way AK sang the songs, his choruses, his verses, he's stronger than he's ever been. This motherfucker just gets better and better, man. It's a pleasure to jam with these guys. They're all super talented musicians. We've got a new member in the band, Ken Mary, new drummer, and it's working out great. I'm super excited about it.
Actually, I would like to elaborate a little bit more about what you just said, because while the performance of the whole band is on steroids, the new kid in town, namely your new drummer Ken Mary, delivers a frantic take no prisoners performance throughout the entire album. Arguably one of the most compelling drumming one can listen to in any of your previous releases. Would be interested in hearing from you regarding the experience of working with Ken in the studio and how much his input influenced the final sound of The End of Chaos.
I've got a lot to say about Mr. Mary. He is one of the most soft-spoken people I know. He's really funny, and he's very polite guy. But when he gets behind the drums, he turns into a monster. And when Jason Bittner decided to go over to Overkill, we decided to ask Ken, because Ken was working with Steve in Steve's studio, and then Ken's got his studio too, so they were doing stuff back and forth. So when we finally asked him, we weren't sure if he was going to want to do it or not, and he said, "Yeah, I'm definitely interested in it." And we watched a lot of videos of other drummers and stuff like that, but we also knew Ken was a monster. But that guy showed up at rehearsal that first day, and I knew within about 15 seconds into the first song that he was going to be our guy. His strengths are all over the board. He's a great songwriter. He's a great lyricist. He's a good, better than good. He's a great singer, and he's a phenomenal drummer. So, what tools he brings into our arsenal, or what weapons he brings into the Flotsam and Jetsam arsenal, or just making it all that much more stronger for this release.
Well, I don't mean to spill the beans here, but I gotta say that Ken Mary's performance throughout the album, as I said initially, takes the whole sound of the band to a complete new level of aggression. Oh
yeah, he certainly does. He definitely knows how to make the tension in the songs, and he adds a lot of character and color to it for sure.
And Michael Spencer returned to the band's lineup around 2013, and for the release of your last album, he brought with him some material written in 1987 that he took with him after his departure. So Flotsam used some of the archive stuff for your self-titled album. Was this the case also with The End of Chaos? Did you guys had some old ideas that you fleshed out for this record, or you went into the studio ready to start from scratch?
No, everything on The End of Chaos is brand new. It's been written after the fact of, even after the songs of the self-released album were written. So there was a total of maybe 45 or 50 songs that we had, that Steve and I had compiled together musically and submitted them over to AK. And we kind of left it up to AK to sing whatever he wanted and whatever he felt very comfortable with and whatever he could get a strong chorus and verse line on. And yeah, that's kind of how we do it these days. And it seems to be working out really well. You know, we've changed our songwriting process a little bit.
I believe that's part of the process of maturing as a band. I mean, changing stuff around your creative process. Mike, if one looks closely at your entire discography, it is impossible not to notice the great variety of different sonority in albums like When the Storm Comes Down, High, and Ugly Noise. When I sit down and played The End of Chaos for the first time, I couldn't help but noticing the development of a newfound aggression in your overall collective sound. I mean, I followed you guys since album number 1, and I can confidently say this record is your heaviest effort to date. So my question is, was that a conscious decision as a band, or it simply came out like that through the recording sessions?
That's just how it came out. Like I was saying before, you know, there's something about this lineup, the way we're all writing together, we're gelling. Like we're like basically on steroids right now as far as the songwriting. And everybody's got like an equal contribution. So that's a huge strength. You know, we've all got production experience, written experience, and it just makes it a lot easier for us. You know, we can go through, we're veterans of recording, so that helps to speed things along. And then also it helps to, if we want to make changes or, you know, arrangements and stuff like that too. So it's awesome. Like when just for an example, I can write a tune and I'll send it off to those guys and they'll give a fresh ear and they'll be like, hey, you know what might sound cool is if we take this part and move it over here and do a little rearranging. And I listen back to it and I'm just like, yeah, that's stronger like that. Let's keep going, man. Let's keep doing that. I get a little extensive on my answers. I know.
No. That's the best thing that you can do. I mean, we hate interviews when you're asking a question and the answer that you get is yes, no, I don't know.
Oh,
that kills the whole thing. So everything that you want to say, you're welcome to say it. That makes it even greater.
And calling it The End of Chaos might suggest for some that you are somewhat paving the way to throw in the towel. However, judging by the level of energy on this album, I'd say that's far from being the case. Am I right in my assumption?
You are totally correct. We started off, we were going to call the record The End. It was after the last song on the record. And the record label was like, you know what, man, that doesn't look good. It doesn't sound good. It sounds like you're throwing the towel in. Let's brainstorm about something else, you know. So we started throwing some stuff out there. I think it's AK that came up with, or AK or Spencer came up with The End of Chaos, and it seemed to kind of work with the album cover, with you know, bringing the lizard back and the city that's destroyed behind him, and also it kind of signifies for me personally like a coming together of the band. Like it's really we're more tight than we've ever been, as far as our relationships with each other and musically, you know. So it kind of like the end of that chaos when we were in the hiatus and making records and kind of still trying to find ourselves back in the 90s. I mean, there's still some good records, but production quality, mix quality back then, it wasn't on point like the last record or this. The End of Chaos is probably the most on point production and mix that we've ever done.
Well, if I were asked to define Flotsam and Jetsam at this point in time, after following you guys for so many years, record after record, I would have to say that your band has reborn. I mean, you guys have rejuvenated yourselves, and since the previous record, I find that there's a whole new level of interest and you guys are doing better than ever.
I like that, and I think you're absolutely right. We're definitely revitalized. There seems to be a whole different age group that's interested in us now. It's not just the old thrash guys that remember No Place for Disgrace and Doomsday for the Deceiver, but it seems like some of the younger kids. I see some kids in their teens, and they've got the No Place shirt on, and they know all the songs. They're right up in the front row, singing the lyrics with AK. And it's like, okay, that makes me feel good. That makes me feel pretty relevant in the business.
So, Mike, after so many years, almost 30 years of writing and recording, is there any kind of formula you follow to constantly come up with new, fresh-sounding material without falling into the trap a lot of other bands do by repeating themselves?
Well, no, there's no real specific template that we go by. I write something, if it sounds cool and it sounds catchy on guitar, I'll keep writing. I mean, there's probably 50 other riffs for the 25 that I came up with that I threw away for this record. I was just like, that turned out shitty.
Jesus.
It's, you get a vision of it, but then there's the bands that keep doing the same thing over and over. You get bands like Testament and Death Angel, and they're making. I don't mean this in a bad way, but they're making the same record. They're very, what would you say?
They stick to a sound.
They stick to their sound. They're religious about that sound, and it works for them. They're selling records, and the fans expect that, and the fans buy it. So I think that's killer too.
Okay, and if you allow me, let's take a trip down memory lane for a bit. At some point in the mid-90s, metal audiences were changing dramatically, but you managed to update your sound a bit without caving into the trends of the time. What kind of memories do you have of such a tough period for the industry?
Yeah, it was a weird time for metal because we were trying to stay, focused on what people would want to hear and what we were listening to and what our influences were in the 90s, but it wasn't working for a metal band. We had major label support behind us, and that wasn't working either because they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, with a metal band. So it was just kind of a little bit of disarray back then, and I'm glad to know that that's gone now, and it seems like with the resurgence of metal, it's stronger, and I sound like the $6 million man, stronger and faster and rebuilt and whatever.
Definitely, those were tough times for metal indeed. I mean, the end of the 80s, the beginning of the 90s with all the alternative metal. Oh man, so many bands threw the towel in that period. It's sad to think about that. As far as the lyrical content, is there a concept behind the songs in the End of Chaos? I mean, we have a track like Prepare for Chaos, Survive, and The End. So is there an underlying story between some of them? Moreover, who is mostly responsible for the lyrical content in the band?
Oh, that's AK. He's his lyric writing has really blossomed in the last few years. He digs down pretty deep and comes up with some really good stuff, and most of it's about life experiences with that guy. As far as is it all a related theme? No, I don't think so. I try not to hound him too much and ask him what he means when he's singing these songs because I think they're very personal to him, and I can relate my own incidences in my life with some of the things that he's saying. So if I can do that, that means if I can connect with AK just by listening to it, then the fans are going to be able to as well. And I think that is so important these days, for someone to listen to his lyrics and go, I understand this, because I can put this to something that happened in my life.
And a few verses of Prisoner of Time have some lyrics that I love. When Eric sings, don't forget the only rule is live and let, live your life without regret, don't be a prisoner of time. Is that a somewhat conscious reference to the struggles the band has gone through in its career?
Perhaps he could be singing about that because I know he's got a lot of the same views about the past with the band and stuff like that, and some times where, it was just a struggle to be in a metal band. So
yeah, I have the impression that, I mean, if he's the main lyricist, as you said, most of the lyrics are really personal and probably they reflect the experiences you guys have gone through all these years together.
Oh yeah. Like I said, he's really like taken his lyrics to the next level as far as the meaning of it and stuff like that. I'm really impressed with the guy. I'm not just saying that because you're one of my best friends, but even if he wasn't, I'd still say the same thing.
Good one. Okay, Mike, this is a tricky one. I've always felt that Flotsam and Jetsam is a band that never compromised its art, so to speak. You guys have stayed true to who you are as musicians and your roots, regardless of being probably the most underrated band in the history of metal. If you look back now and you take all of that into consideration, would you have changed your sound and had gone in different directions earlier in your career to gain a wider success in the music industry and the accolades of some of your peers?
No. I would have. The only things I would have done differently about our past is I would have a couple of the records. I would have done some better production and better mixing. Spent more time on it. When you get into major labels and stuff like that, you get into time constraints and money, and you have to have it turned in at a certain time. Then they're like, "Fuck it, it's not done. We got timelines. This has got to be released." It's like, what do you mean? It's not even mastered yet. How can you release something that's not even mastered? Yeah. But that's the mentality of it. And what happened is there was maybe 4 records that suffered badly on, that I thought had great songs, but the production just wasn't all quite there, Definitely not. It couldn't hold a candle to the End of Chaos,
And going back to the End of Chaos a little bit, another song that stood out for me is Architect of Hate. The chorus with the echo-like effect on Eric's voice added a touch of black metal for us to the tune, while the riff is infectious. The overall sound throughout the album is top-notch. Would you say that collaborating again with producer Jacob Jensen translated into the overall feeling of anger, bleakness, and speed that transpired from beginning to end?
No, I mean, that was one of Steve's riffs that he came up with, so probably not a whole lot of black metal in that, but... Yeah, because he doesn't play anything like that. He's more like into like the 80s rock type stuff, the mid-tempo metal. So yeah, I think it was just something that happened for Steve as far as beginning and writing the song. It's something that just came out like that, and he was like, "Whoa, this sounds fucking heavy. I'm going to use this," Yeah, that's the thing I like about what AK did on this record is he sounds like he sounds angry. He sounds very passionate, and yeah, I don't know. I'm speechless about what that guy did on this record.
If you go back to the first record, I mean, singing the way that he sang in that record was pretty crazy by the time. 1986, those high notes, and obviously everything changes and voice matures and singers adapt, but the way that the ferocity that he's adding right now is really impressive.
Yeah, we used to make fun of him. Like, we used to always tease him about having vice grips on his balls to be able to sing that high.
If you ask any of your fans or followers, pretty much all of them unanimously would say that your previous self-titled album kind of catapulted Flotsam and Jetsam back to the forefront of the metal scene. Some naysayers would say, nah, it's part of the resurgence of the thrash metal as a genre. And I say, this is nothing more than high-quality music and the result of endurance and ultimately a stick-to-your-guns attitude.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So how important would you say that album was, and how would you compare it from the musician's perspective with the upcoming one?
I think that you hit it right on the head. It was a catapult for what we just did, what we're getting ready to release. So if the last record would have been a mediocre record, and the End of Chaos still comes out the way it is, it wouldn't make such an impact. We're hoping it's going to take us to a different level and get out to some different fans. The musicianship is we're always trying to be over the top as far as that. Steve and I, constant competition. We send our tracks back to each other and be like, "Hey, what do you think of this solo?" And I'll be like, "That motherfucker, now I got to do a better solo." So we keep sending stuff back, and I'll send it back, and then, yeah, so it turns into a competition, very friendly competition that's healthy,
Absolutely. And well, we just touched on this a while before, but there's a resurgence of metal of some kind, and you guys are able to experience that now. There's young kids going to your concerts and etc. To what do you credit that? It seems that there's a lot of more support from the record companies right now than there were in the past 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah, I think it's attributed to also kids. Kids aren't dumb, you know. They want to hear. There's something about it, and I guess the best example I could give you right now that we would all understand is like "Kill 'Em All." That record. There's something about it. It's the music's very basic. The songs are very basic, but they're on fire. There's an anger and there's an aggression in that music that you just can't explain it. It's like it's a phenomena, you know. And I think kids are looking for that. They're not looking for this regenerated metal that has that everybody sounds the same, you know. So and I think that they can detect that, and they can also detect that hunger in some bands where, okay, this is bringing some fire. It's giving me energy, you know.
Definitely. Another tricky one for you. What track in the album you believe that captures the atmosphere and the vibe of the whole production in a better way? In other words, what's your favorite track and why?
Oh man, that's a great question. I haven't even thought of this one yet. Yeah, I wish you would have sent me the questions now. No. I like speed metal, so I'm gonna go with Control, just because it's fast, and I like to hear stuff that's in your face fast right off the bat. And yeah, I think that's the reason why I would go with that. But that's not for everybody, you know. I can't go to the average person in the grocery store and say, hey, listen to this song and tell me if you like it or not, because they're going to go, no, that makes me want to crash my car, you know. So I don't know. But can I ask you the same question?
Oh man, now I'm the one saying that this is going to be a tricky one. Okay, let's sing out loud here for a moment. I know Rodrigo loves Architects of Hate. He already asked you about that cut. And I solemnly agree that song is a threatening rampage of metal that exudes a frightening vibe. Obviously, I mean, to whoever who had listened to the two singles, Recover and Demolition Men, they would agree that they are excellent choices. But if I was to pick up my favorite song, I would say that is Unwelcome Surprise. That track is the one that harkens back the most to the old Flotsam and Jetsam material, in my opinion, with piercing thrash riffing guitars and memorable melodic choruses intertwining with Spence's punishing bass harmonies.
Oh, thank you. I will tell you this, though. You hit that right on the head. I'll set this up for you a little bit. Like Steve and I, when we write all the music that went on this record, he writes a lot different than me. I write the really fast stuff, and he writes the more mid-tempo stuff. So when you say Unwanted Surprise, it sounds a little bit like the old school Flotsam coming back. That's one of the ones that I wrote. So you have a great ear on that, and for noticing that. So thank you.
I'm telling you, I've been listening to Flotsam and Jetsam since I was in Cuba, playing back to a crappy, almost worn out cassette with Doomsday all the way to now. I mean, I've never given up on you guys. I don't know, if you ask me right now, I wouldn't be able to tell you why. I've listened to Testament or Death Angel of Overkill and any other metal bands. There was always certain charm in you guys that I cannot explain that made me really excited about every single album the moment that it was coming out.
Oh, thank you, man. That's why we do it. That's exactly why we keep doing it, because people that are passionate about it, like you and us. So.
And if you can, tell us about the cover a little bit, which is a modern take on the lizard that appeared on the cover of your very first album. Was there an intention to go back to your roots, not just musically, but also in the graphical sense?
We sent that off to the artist. We gave him an idea of what we wanted, and it was almost like a first take. When he sent that back to us, we're like, oh, that's it. That's the record cover right there. He did such a killer job on it.
So, Mike, you guys have announced some tour days for 2019, and I got this question about precisely the upcoming tour, mainly about the set list. And obviously, I'm not asking you to reveal anything. I would imagine that it's hard to choose what songs to play when you have 13 albums worth of material to pick from. And I've noticed that lately your set lists have been like a revolving door selection based on mostly your first two albums, throwing in there 4 tracks, or at the time latest record, I mean like If the Mess, the utterly fantastic Iron Maiden, Seven Seals, and Monkey Grange. Drift has been represented by Me and Smoked Out, which is one of my favorite songs of your entire catalog. However, other albums like High and Ugly Noise are completely absent. Obviously, for the new tour, you guys will include tracks from The End of Chaos. But do you think that any of the other songs that you have never played live before would make an appearance?
That's a strong possibility. And that's what we're talking about right now. We're developing our set list to our time slot, which is when we first go over to Europe. We're touring with Overkill and Destruction, so we'll have 55 minutes. But then when we come back to the States, we'll have an hour and a half. So we'll have an hour and a half to try to make everybody happy. We're definitely going to do some of the classics. We always got to do No Place for Disgrace. And some of the Hammerhead. We always have to do Hammerhead.
Yeah.
But then, we're thinking about bringing Giddy Up from Ugly Noise back into the set. We used to play Ugly Noise, and it just, for a thrash set, it's two stop and two go, where I think people, they have trouble keeping the energy up. So if we ever do a song that the energy level starts to drop, we tend to kind of put it on the back burner of the set list, because we want people to be elevated when they leave the show, and not like, man, I'm kind of, I just want to go home and go to bed. We want them to be pumped up. We want them to, yeah.
I've been to the last two shows that you guys have made, like in the South Florida area. I mean, West Palm Beach, the last three. I mean, you played in Miami, in the actual Miami, probably 5 years ago, in a place that is no longer active. And then a couple of other times you played in West Palm Beach in different venues, one with Jason, and now this last time opening for Hammerfall. And my only disappointment was that your set was so short. I was there, first row, like looking at Spencer. He was like playing in front of me. And I was like, well, no, it can't be that they are already done. And obviously, I understand you're opening for Hammerfall. So, I mean, it's only so much that you can play when you're an opening band. But it was like, oh, man, come on. Not so short. And going back to Ugly Noise, this is an interesting anecdote. My kids, I have 4 daughters, and 3 of them love Rabbit's Foot, the song from Ugly Noise.
Oh,
they know
that's my daughter's favorite one, too.
Well, they know the lyrics and everything. And every now and then, when I'm driving, they would tell me, hey, Dad, can you just play Rabbit's Foot? It's so funny.
So we need to put Rabbit's Foot in there. That's what you're saying. It's a subliminal message. Okay.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us today. Do you have any final words for our listeners and the fans before we wrap up this conversation?
The only thing is I'm super excited about this record. I can't wait for everybody to hear it. And I want to hear everybody's feedback on it. If I get a chance to talk to some of the fans about it, love to hear everybody's feedback. And I'm super excited, stoked about it. And I have to say thank you for having me on your show too. And next time, don't be standing in front of Spencer. Come over to my side of the stage, all right?
I was next to you too. I mean, I got some cool pictures of that show. Really cool ones.
All right. Well, we're going to be there again in the summertime. So,
and I'll be there. You can bet on that. I'm pretty sure that Rodrigo is also making plans to be at your show in Toronto, right, Rodrigo?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. It's the one I don't want to miss next year. I know there's a date already set. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'll keep an eye out for that, and I won't miss this show, I promise.
All right. We'll have a beer together, all right?
Definitely, man.
Sure thing.
Hey, guys. All right. Well, thanks a lot for having me on your show again. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure
Thank
all
you.
the time, Mike. I mean, be well, and we wanted to congratulate you for the record. We have the opportunity to listen to the record extensively, at least myself, and I know that Rodrigo is going to keep him in his rotation as well. And as I said before, I'm truly, truly, truly excited regarding what the future will bring. I believe that the fans are going to embrace this album completely from head to toe. You're really, really, really hitting your stride. As you said, Flotsam and Jetsam, your self-titled record, was really a revelation. And this one has made what I believe that was hard to do, keeping up the pace and keeping up the momentum. That's the proper word to say.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Gilbert, guitarist and founding member of Arizona thrash metal veterans Flotsam and Jetsam. Their new album, The End of Chaos, drops in next January 18th via AFM Records, and we recommend each and every metalhead out there to go and buy it in whatever format you listen to music to.
Thanks to all of you for listening. We are Rodrigo Altaf and myself, Joel Barrios, and we invite you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or simply subscribe to our podcast or YouTube channel to keep yourself up to date with all our interviews and our Talking Perspective series. We leave you now with one of our favorite tracks from The End of Chaos. This is Demolition Men. Stay metal.